Thank you very much, Erik. I'm just going to quote one of my favorite phrases from American film, "Make me an offer I can't refuse." But maybe you don't want to after today. I'm very honored and very happy to be here in Hohenems, and I must make a confession. I found the theme, for me personally, very problematic, because I'm an orphan with no relatives. I don't have any parents, they're dead. I don't have any brothers or sisters, they never had. I thought I didn't have any aunts or uncles, but somewhere out of the blue via the internet, I got across a cousin, who's very rich, which is very nice. So that means that there have been aunts and uncles somewhere, but I do not know them. I do not have family. I'm fascinated by family because I want to know how families work. One of my favorite programs is this program where adopted children go abroad and they visit their original environment and they visit their original mothers, and there is this idea of family, and it's intriguing for me because I don't have family. I have in-laws. I have great in-laws. I fell in love with my father-in-law, but he was already married, so I married his daughter, and that's been a privilege. So for me, I'm not going to talk about Jewish family life. I'm not going to talk about what makes a Jewish family tick. As a matter of fact, I'm going to talk about the kind of Jewish family that is not really a Jewish family, the kind of Jewish family that you can call Jewish relatives, maybe, but they don't constitute a family. And history has proven that this family life is no longer there. What am I going to talk to you about after this appalling introduction? I'm going to talk to you about an experience I had in Amsterdam before I came to Zürich this spring, where I taught, together with my colleague Professor Shlomo Berger, who is in Amsterdam mainly for the Yiddish and the Jewish history. We decided not to teach a course that's only been visited by 5 people who know Hebrew, but we decided to go a bit broader. And we thought we wanted to reach a bigger public. And we were both, he's an orphan, I'm an orphan, very much intrigued by the BBC series, Who Do You Think You Are? Some of you will have seen one item which Evita has kindly put at our disposal. It's an didn't have time to see it, but I think it's very it must be very representative. This is an English series. It has started in 2004, where famous Brits, or not so famous Brits, or Brits who were famous and are now a bit on the decline, are invited to go and trace their ancestry. It's been on the air between 2004 and 2013. There have been 11 series. There were 100 episodes planned, but I somehow get the idea they didn't quite make it. They got a BAFTA, a British Film and Television Award, in 2010. But the best thing is, of course, they sold the format to 16 countries. Switzerland does not have the format, funnily enough. The United States is the only area where they did buy the format, but where they changed something. I don't know if they did in the episode you sent. They added the item of DNA research, which is absolutely absent in the other clones. There's an Israeli clone of the program. It's called Mi Ata Choshev She'ata. They didn't really work very hard on that title. And there's some really interesting episodes with Israelis going back to Europe. So that is also, but we did not have time to watch this. It has a fixed format. We all know how it works. You're a famous Brit and you get a phone call and they say, if you say yes, you have to schedule 2 weeks free in your diary and you have to pack a suitcase and you have to really go on an adventure trip. You go in search of your immediate relatives, and then you try to trace them back as far as you are prepared to go, or as far as the archives are prepared to let you reconstruct your family history. You live out of a suitcase for 2 weeks, and you get pieces of vital information while you're being filmed. And if people play by the book, they're in for some surprises. People don't always know what's going to happen, and that's what makes it really exciting. Another thing which is really exciting is that this is really a program where you see, alongside the famous Brits, the most boring people in the world, the people who work in archives. They get a star role. It's really a good reason for getting an archive career. You meet famous people and you're able to tell them about their ancestry, and they love you or they hate you for it. I think I'll have to take help. I'm pushing a button, but it's not really doing anything. Ich drücke einen Tasten, aber es bewegt nicht. Aber so. God helps those who help themselves. Yeah. We had 7 weeks, so we had 6 famous Brits, and I have no idea if you probably don't know all of them, but you must know some. These were the 6 Brits. I'll tell a bit more about their episodes later. On the top left you see Devla Kieran. And Devla Kieran is a very interesting person in that she's Irish and she has Jewish ancestry, and she didn't know anything about it. So she always thought she was a Catholic, but she has a Jewish grandfather. Alongside her is David Suchet, the actor, whom you may know from his role as Hercule Poirot. The lady on the right, I'm sure you don't know, but you should, because she's the one person who proves that you can become really very old while chain smoking 80 cigarettes a day. This is June Brown from the British television series EastEnders. I'll also tell a bit more about her. The one on the right is probably the one, certainly to the younger audience, best known. That's Zoe Wanamaker. She's a very serious actress, but I think the wider public will probably know her best from her roles in Harry Potter films. And I don't know whom she plays because I can't watch those films. On the bottom, I think the most famous guy in the Netherlands, at least, Stephen Fry, who used to be the sidekick of, what's his name, Hugh Laurie in Dr. House. That's when they were really both doing good work. I think now they've seen better times. Stephen Fry, he's a bit of a funny person in this program. And on the left, she's very famous. Here she's not yet doing all the coke. Nigella Lawson, dressed as a buxom milkmaid, as far as I'm concerned. We publicly viewed the 6 episodes, these people going in search or rediscovering their Jewish lineage. And of course we had to have some methodology. And our methodology, I mean, this was for a broader audience, so we decided to have a light methodology. And the required reading is a book that's already a bit old. It's from 1985 by David Lowenthal, and it's called The Past is a Foreign Country. I don't know if you know it, people who did history and studied public history may know it because it's really required reading for the public historians. It's about historical consciousness in the broadest sense of the word. The title I'll come back to it a bit. The title is really a quotation from a novel by L.P. Hartley, and it's good to know the original title of the original novel. It's called it's not the title of the novel by L.P. Hartley, but it's the first sentence of the novel by L.P. Hartley. L.P. Hartley wrote a novel where an older man looks back on a certain episode from his youth, and the novel begins with the famous words, "The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there." And that's important to realize also for this series. The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there. 2 elements of this metaphor, you might say, are important for me. First of all, part of the metaphor, the past as a country. That's also very important when we look a bit closer at the series in a moment and how to interpret the series. The past is a country. We experience time as place. We can't really travel time. H.G. Wells wrote a really horrible book about it, and they made an even more horrible film about it with, I think it's Christopher Nolan. And it doesn't look good, traveling time. You can't really show it, but you can show traveling space. And it's one of the conceptual metaphors that we live by. I'll come back to that later as well. So time is space in this program, but also in L.P. Hartley's novel, the first sentence goes, "The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there." And this man is looking back at his own youth. So there is a kind of distance, even towards yourself, in the past. Simultaneously, for these people in this program, Nigella Lawson, Stephen Fry and their like, the foreign bit is family. So there's a kind of a tension there that we really want to explore. How does it work? Lowenthal 1985 describes in 3 parts what people do with the past, what the West has done with the past. The West has wanted the past, it has needed the past to learn from it, to be nourished by it, to maybe not learn from it. That's what the West has done. It wanted to know the past, so there's a part of the book is about how do we get hold of the past? Where are the channels through which we can reach the past? And the final bit is also not entirely irrelevant for the course we gave in this lecture. We can't really stomach the past. Freud already said, we want to make the past harmless. We want to tame it, we want to tamper with it. We can't really stomach the past the way it was. We can't know the past the way it was, but we can't also. So when we start using it and wanting it, we have to know it, but while knowing it, we will also change the past. These are all things to keep in mind when we look at the series. And I'm going to my next slide. Yes, I'm just briefly going to introduce how the series worked. The first one we showed was Stephen Fry. You see him on the top right. And Stephen Fry is a bit of an exception in this program because he did not pack his suitcase. And I guess the program wanted him very badly, so they allowed him to make his own program. And he directed it from the beginning to the end. He knew very well that he was not going to encounter anything he didn't know. He was going to show us something. And he had a motto. And the motto was, when you look at me, you see a guy who's Britisher than British. And that's the guy, the remarkably neutral guy, I would say, on the left. He's wearing this lovely tweed, and that's what Stephen Fry refers to in his introduction. He says, you see me, you see all tweed, but you should know that I am really from a noisy, bustling European Jewish family. I can tell you he is not. He's from a Jewish family, but he's not from a bustling, noisy, food-eating and throwing and arguing Jewish family, which he presents in this program as his ancestry. He's from industrial bourgeoisie. And so the picture that you see there on the right, forget it. This was never, but this is the image he conjures up, and then he takes us back to his ancestry via Vienna to Slovakia, where his ancestors had a huge factory. So, and they were not particularly bustling, and they were not particularly noisy. And one of the interesting episodes, I can't really show it here, that's a pity, is that he's in Vienna, where his family was partly at the beginning of part of his family was at the beginning of the war, and he meets 2 little guys, 2 very orthodox little guys, and he tries to talk to them from one Jew to the other, and it really doesn't work. These are these young kids, they're very fluent in English, they're very fluent in Hebrew, and they're very fluent in German, and they immediately see, this is an English guy, and the only thing he asks is, oh, did you have your bar mitzvah yet? So there's the common ground he seeks. We end this story very sadly where he tries to trace some people from his family, some aunts, who have died in the Holocaust and have disappeared from the records. And this is where you see him crying. So there's a canonical element in this program, or various canonical elements. There's the bustling family that he's supposed to be from. Well, his mother is also in the program. She's not a Jewish mother. She's very, very British, as a matter of fact. And she was forced to be very British. As a refugee, parents told her, don't be bustling, noisy and European, be British. And that's what she is. So this is one story. The other story is perhaps maybe not the woman you know best. I don't know if you ever saw the series Silk. She's married to Rupert Penry Jones. You don't want to know this. This is Dervla Kiran. and she's an Irish actress, and on her mother's side, she's a descendant of the guy on the right, whom you all know. He's Michael Collins. And if there's anybody really important in Irish revolutionary life around 1916, and in the Irish army, in the Irish intelligence, in the Irish government, it's Michael Collins. And that's Catholic, all right, Michael Collins. She goes in search of her ancestry, and she finds out that it's not her grandfather, it's a great-grandfather, is a refugee, not really a refugee, he's a guy from Riga in Russia, who arrives, unfortunately not in America, but in Dublin, marries a Protestant woman, and doesn't really get a good career. He becomes a kind of criminal, but not really a criminal. He's more the kind of sorry person who doesn't really get along in life. And at one Shabbos afternoon, he throws in a window of a shopkeeper in the neighborhood, and he's being arrested, and he's being tried in a court with a very, very, very prejudiced judge who sentences him to an abysmal and idiotic and disproportionate punishment. And this disproportionate punishment is the end of this great-grandfather. He never really survives it. She did not know anything, or she's an amazing actress, but I really can't imagine. She didn't know this part of the story. And what's interesting to see for her is that the Jewish part is absolutely irrelevant. It's the justice part that really plays a role for her. The Jew as a victim of injustice, or basically a person as a victim of injustice. By the way, the whole episode of this great-grandfather anonymously, and the judge, the corrupt judge, who was also judged in London, tried in London for that,